another episode of the Monday Morning Podcast. Very excited to have Amit Anand, the legal luminary from Wells Fargo. I mean, we actually worked at Wells Fargo and he moved on to different companies as well. So, welcome, Amit. Any welcome words before I do a formal introduction of you?
Thank you, Ravi, and it's such a great feeling to be here. And thank you for associating me with Wells Fargo. I'm no more with Wells Fargo, and I certainly thank Wells Fargo for kind of exposure and work experience I got there. So thank you so much for mentioning me and associating me to Wells Fargo. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's move on. Amit is an internationally acclaimed lawyer with 15 years of over 15 years of industry experience in managing diverse teams, multi-jurisdictional matters, and delivering business enabling solutions and helping succeed businesses as such. And he's currently working as a lead legal counsel with Commonwealth Bank of Australia. In his past roles, he's worked with Wells Fargo. It was my colleague over there. NTT Data and EY as Senior Legal Counsel, managing various jurisdictions including India, Philippines, China, Poland, Spain, Hungary, Sri Lanka, Mexico, and Argentina. Amit is a BBA LLB honors from ICFAI University, Dehradun, and a Master of Laws, LLM, Employment and Labor Laws. He's an advocate, Bar Council of India, is a certified professional in corporate governance, and a certified privacy professional as such. He's got a lot of honors and awards, and recent ones includes part of Leading Lawyers 2022 issued by World IP Forum for 2022. He's got a lot of gold coins awards, I think, at Wells Fargo and other organizations as such. So warm welcome, Amit. Let's look at the themes for our audience. The first theme we look at layoffs and legal remedies for employees. Very, very important topic over there. Then we'll move on to theme 2, which is entitlement for compensation, severance, and retrenchment. We'll look at IDA Act and permissible criteria to be adopted by employees as theme 3. And theme 4, again, very important, employees whom to approach to pursue legally. And theme 5, influencers as to who have been the influencers for you personally and professionally. So the first question for you is, what should employees be cognizant of while signing their employment contract? And which provisions or clauses have them during layoffs, Amit?
Thank you, Ravi. So, as a lawyer, I would say everything, because when you sign a contract or an agreement, it becomes very important that you have reviewed it properly. And at times, you may have some questions. Please seek clarification and explanation on the same from your recruiter or from a hiring manager. That becomes very important. But then, from redundancy or layoff standpoint, you need to look for exact clauses like notice period.
Mm-hmm.
If they have any, they have already mentioned about redundancy mechanism. I think that becomes important to review. But I think very often I have seen that it doesn't go into so much of detail. But as long as termination clause is concerned, they mention termination for cause and without cause. So now job redundancy is something which comes within the scope of for cause.
Mm-hmm.
So here you need to look at the notice period exactly, and apart from that, there are some legal protections applicable on these cases.
Mm-hmm.
And top of all, there most of the organizations, or like I would say, most of well-established organizations, whether it is an MNC or an Indian company, they do have redundancy policy or procedures in place,
Right.
and that is very often better than what is offered under the law.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk more about the cases where this notice period would apply, and the cases where, or the category of people where notice period which is applicable under various laws would apply.
Right.
As of now, from employment contract standpoint, I would still stick to the notice period clause become very relevant when it comes to retrenchment.
Sure. Thank you for that. Now, in what laws and regulations govern or cover employees for layoff situations? Because we have seen a lot of layoffs across the board, across different companies, larger ones, smaller ones, and startups as such. What should employees be aware of, Amit?
The first thing which employees should be aware of, and I always believe that self-awareness is very important. So you need to understand first what category you fall into.
Right.
So various jurisdictions, there are different definitions about uh, the way employees are categorized. Let's say in India, you have workmen versus managerial workforce.
Right.
And then top of it, there is something called as management as well.
Right.
So mostly, just in general parlance, let me explain this. Workmen are those who are performing clerical and administrative duties.
Mhm.
Mostly ICs, individual contributors. If you
Mhm.
really look into the IT side of ITS industry side of things,
Mhm.
so it is most of those ICs, individual
Right.
contributors, which falls into the category of workmen.
Mhm.
Then the category two is managerial resource who are performing supervisory duties.
Right.
So those people are categorized as managerial resource.
Okay.
And then third category is management, which is most of the leadership team.
Mhm.
They would fall into the category of management.
Sure.
uh, and I'm sure you must have guessed, but management gets the least protection, and workmen gets the highest protection under the Indian laws.
Right.
And that's not the case everywhere across the globe.
Yeah.
But yes, India is a bit unique when it comes to providing protection under the local laws, and especially on retrenchment and redundancies.
Right.
So it is limited to workmen right now,
Mhm.
and even in future, when these labor codes are going to come into picture, I don't think there is any significant change which is going to come in.
Right. Great. I mean, can we also look at regulations that govern employees in Philippines as well?
Yeah, so the difference between Philippines and India is that I talked about the categories here. So in Philippines, the only one category which is exempted is the management.
Mhm.
Apart from that, there is no such categorization as such managerial or non-managerial resource. That is, there is no concept of workman in Philippines.
Ah.
Everybody falls into the scope of employee. So there is a simple term employee, and that includes both managerial resource and workmen, as far as Philippines law is concerned, because there is no concept of workmen in Philippines.
All right.
But then coming back to India, as I said,
Sure.
workman is really a I would say ambiguous as well, but he used concept to understand
Mhm.
whether, and that's why it becomes important. And as I talked about being self-aware, so it
Mhm.
becomes very important that you know exactly which category I am falling in, so
Yeah.
that I understand my rights better, and I can exactly negotiate with my employer if need be, or
Mhm.
demand my employers to meet those rights I have.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that, Amit. Coming to the other end, in terms of the corporates as such, what criteria should corporates adopt while laying off their employees in India, Amit?
Yeah, so it becomes very interesting. Again, India, I always say, is a diverse country, and so as the laws are, so it's very diverse and ambiguous as well. Then, when it comes to different industries, different requirement comes into picture. Even within ID, depending on what kind of industry you are in, what kind of or what kind of workforce you have,
Mhm.
and what is the number of employees you have. Depending on all of this, you decide what steps needs to be taken. But
Right.
I'll again give you a very high level view,
Sure.
because I'm sure this is not going to be a legal advice,
Yeah.
but certainly I can give you some guidance here. And as far as laws are concerned, there are two laws which would apply here.
Okay.
One, Substance Establishment Act, and
Mhm.
this is something I'm talking for IT/ITS workforce, because I understand that, Ravi, most of our audience would be from IT/ITS.
Yeah.
So, Substance Establishment Act is something which, of course, apply on the workforce which is sought to be made redundant,
Mhm.
or to be retrenched prospectively. Two, ID Act, Industrial Disputes Act. And,
Okay.
and even there is another act which is Industrial Establishment Standing Order Act that may also apply
Mhm.
depending on the state you are in.
Right.
But in states like Karnataka, it is already exempted right now.
Mhm.
There is already a negotiation and discussion going on with regard to how we should be treating it prospectively. But
Right.
as of now, it is still exempted when it comes to uh, industrial Industrial Establishment Standing Order Act.
Okay.
So that doesn't apply in states like Karnataka and even in Telangana.
Right.
So coming back to the application of law,
Mhm.
as I said, Industrial Disputes Act would certainly apply, and this would apply only for those employees who falls into the category of workmen. As I said in the beginning of this discussion, that the workmen category of workforce would get the most protection under the applicable laws,
Yes.
whereas management will get the least. So, when it comes to workmen, as an employer, there are few steps which needs to be taken. Starting from the notice of redundancy or retrenchment.
Right.
So, as an employer, you need to notify the workforce who are sought to be made redundant or sought to be retrenched. Uh, but then, before you even notify them, you need to have a proper business justification, and that becomes very important because, we need to demonstrate as an employer at some point in time that the redundancy which we have made, it is in good faith
Mm.
and it is genuine. So it's not like, just to get rid of few people,
Yeah.
we have circumvented the law in some way. It becomes very important that you have proper business justification. And
Yes.
when I say business justification, it is also important that you should have a clarity with regard to how long you don't require such roles.
Correct.
Usually it is for an year at least. You
Mm.
don't require those people, and that's when we start making people redundant
Right.
because we don't have rules for them.
Mm.
And so notification is very important, and notification goes to employees and also to regulator. When I say
Correct.
regulator, it is labor department in most of the states. And as you know, labor is a subject which falls into concurrent list of Constitution of India.
Right.
That's why both state and center can legislate upon it. So depending upon which state you are in, you
Mm.
may have to notify the authorities accordingly. But you need to notify authorities with regard to the fact that you are making people redundant. There
Right.
are companies, I would not like to name them. You can find it, it's all over media, who
Sure.
have failed to notify authorities and they have to face consequences for the same.
Yes.
So, as an employer, it becomes very important
Mm.
that they should notify authorities. As an employee, you can still find out whether they have notified it or not by reaching out to these authorities.
Right.
So, if you are genuinely being made redundant, your employer would certainly notify the authorities in this regard.
Mm.
Two, they will provide a notice of redundancy to you as well as an employee who
Mm.
is sought to be made redundant. And top of all, sorry, they will pay you severance compensation.
Yes.
So that severance compensation, from ID Act standpoint, the way it is calculated, it is 15 days for every year worked. So that's the calculation which normally used across India.
Right.
But in most of the cases, you will see that employers make it better. Like some use 3 weeks,
Mm.
some say a month for an year worked. So depending on what kind of redundancy policy you have, and
Right.
always ask for it. You
Mm.
should always, as soon as you receive that notice of redundancy, you should go back to your employer, ask them about their severance policy or redundancy policy,
Mm.
and accordingly understand what the severance compensation would be.
Sure.
So that becomes very important.
Mm.
But when it comes to managerial workforce, as I
Right.
said, SOX and Establishment Act would apply. So there is no concept of severance for them unless and until there is a policy in the organization which applies on these managerial resource and management as well, stating that in case of redundancy, there will be an amount of severance paid, and
Right.
there is a calculation specified for such severance amount.
Mm.
So you need to, as I said, you need to find out.
Sure.
I I think Ravi, we can also talk about the fact that do you think if employee can negotiate on this severance?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
At times, employees are very curious that,
Yeah.
well, this is what I'm being offered. Can I go ahead and negotiate on this?
Yeah.
I think, see, it depends. You can still negotiate as a union if you are a
Mm.
part of union, if, or you have a, group of employees who uh, got together to negotiate on these things. See, formation of union is not illegal in India. And in fact, Constitution of India and labor legislations in India encourage the formation of unions. So you can always get together and put a stand before your employer,
Right.
and then see. Now, going together as a group doesn't mean that you are trying to disrupt the things.
Yeah.
Rather, you are trying to negotiate better for your livelihood or
Mm.
for your survival when you don't have a don't have an employment exactly.
Yes.
So it is all legal to do. You can still negotiate. You can individually also negotiate upon it.
Mm.
But then, as I said, your are limited only to the extent it is provided under the law.
Right.
Of course, upon negotiation, employer can provide you um, better package, but
Yeah.
in most of the cases, doesn't happen. And especially in IT, ITS, I think you should figure it out that whether you are being paid as per the law or not. And anyway, in India, IT, ITS doesn't have a very well recognized union as such.
Mm.
So I think in most of the cases, you just stick with whatever is mandated under the law.
Right. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your guidance there, Amit. Uh, Coming to the differences and similarities between the redundancy laws in Philippines and India, what's your take on that, Amit?
Well, so in Philippines, redundancy is a very well structured process.
Right.
So, and it's very prescriptive when it comes to Philippines laws.
Mm.
And if you really ask me, redundancy and severance pays are better in Philippines in comparison to what you have what you have for employees in India. Two, the scope of these severance and redundancy application of redundancy laws
Mm.
are wider in Philippines in comparison to India, and
Okay.
that's why I would say that if you really ask me, a Philippines employee of the same organization would
Mm.
get a better deal and better package when
Right.
exiting the organization
Mm.
in comparison to India. So, to uh, you have a better way to deal with the regulators because DOLE, the Department of Labor and Employment in Philippines,
Mm.
that would immediately come into picture because you need to notify DOLE as you do it in India as well. But
Mm.
in my experience, I've seen that in Philippines, DOLE get very interested into these discussions and they ask for detailed information with regard to redundancies.
Mm.
And therefore, as I said, in Philippines, um, very often it is better than India when it comes to severance pays.
Great. 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 Thank you. Thank you for that. And so, I mean, the final question in terms of from a law standpoint is in what kind of cases can employees take the legal route? If they have to take the legal route, whom they should be approaching, any kind of guidelines would actually help Amit here.
Yeah. So first, as I said, you need to find out whether your rights are abridged or not.
Right.
So whether you are paid severance in accordance to the law, whether you have been served with a redundancy notice, uh, and if notice has been served, whether it was served within the timeline prescribed under the law or not. Depending upon your evaluation, if you figure out that your rights are not respected
Mm.
and it has been breached by your employer in some way,
Right.
you have remedies for that. And uh, I would say the most proximate remedy which you have is that you can go ahead and file a complaint before the Deputy Labor Commissioner, and you can finally go to the Labor Tribunal as well.
Right.
But then before you go there, I think there is a process of conciliation as well, which happens in these cases.
Right.
And I think in at least in uh, industrial dispute cases or like this redundancy dispute cases,
Mm.
most of these things get resolved at the conciliation table itself.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and any employee who feels that they have not been paid as per the applicable laws,
Mm.
I would always advise that they should explore these remedies.
Great. 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 Thank you so much, Amit. Okay, coming to personally and professionally, who have been the most influence on you professionally and personally, Amit?
So I think, see, I'm a first generation lawyer. So of course, I would certainly thank my dad. Uh, my father has been great motivation for me. Uh, he was a government servant, now he's retired,
Right.
and still he continues to be a great motivation for me. And then my mentor, Mr. Vinod Manatal.
Yeah.
And he has, so I still thank him for the fact that he has hired me. He was he was my first manager who hired me, and then he gave me this opportunity. And he always tells me that it was your hard work, and I believe that unless I get that opportunity, how would I prove myself? So he
Okay.
was the one who have given me opportunity. So both of them, I would say, um, my father. and Mr. Vinod Martel, my first manager. So
Right.
both of them have been really important in my career journey, and they have influenced me. Hugely, and I think it's all because of the motivation I've got from both of them. I'm I'm successful in doing whatever I'm doing right now.
Great, great, Amit. I was actually going through Vinod's, recommendation of you on LinkedIn. I don't want to read the entire thing, but it really very nicely captures your journey over there. But in conclusion, he says, "Great to see where Amit is in his journey today. Truly inspirational and speaks to the investment he has made in himself to lesson, learn, apply, and deliver." So, yeah, great mentor and mentee. Lovely to have you, Amit. Lot of advice that you have actually given, and I will definitely put in a word saying that, okay, you've heard the legal remedy over here, but don't apply it. You need to really go to a lawyer and then, seek it. I'll put it in legal terms while I post it on the social media without question. But thanks a lot for your time, Amit. I think next time we will definitely meet up sometime down the lane with another burning topic which is relevant to the employees, Amit. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit.